All right, everybody, we are back again for another episode of the Coach's Compass. Again, don't remember what episode it is because we just continue to roll and bring on cool guests from all over the world. It's your boy, Coach Coop, right, reporting live right now from the U.S. of A. Right, Coach J can't be with us tonight because he's got a lot of things going on, but we got another cool guest, right? My boy, Coach Ray, out of the Netherlands. He's a physio and strength and conditioning coach, helping athletes and sports organizations with strength and conditioning and physio services based out of, again, the Netherlands, but mostly working with teams to help them understand the strength and conditioning and physio side of things. So, Coach Ray, thank you for being here with us today and welcome, my brother.
Thank you very much for having me, Coop. Glad to be here, man.
For sure, man. So, let's dive into this, man. What is Coach Ray doing in the industry that you see other coaches aren't doing and is helping you bring success?
Well, I think, my philosophy sort of changed. I think it does with a lot of coaches over the years. But I was finding, I think I was targeting and expecting too much from athletes in terms of the amateur and semi-pro level, where I had an idea of a utopian world where they would train and do everything right, and we could start working on 1% of things. I found out pretty quickly that a lot of the athletes and people that I work with sort of overestimate where they are in terms of their S&C journey, in terms of all the pillars that you need to be a successful athlete. And a lot of the time, it's just getting those big rocks sorted, getting those big pillars sorted. So that's what I try to do mostly. And I think for 90% of my population, that kind of works. And then once I realize I have the buy-in and somebody that's ready to go and committed and ready to train hard and, do all the extra things outside of the gym, outside of the field, and then we can start looking at those 1% and 2%ers. Yeah, that's probably what I've learned in the last year or so, that people often overestimate where they are in their sort of athletic journey. And you sort of pick it up later in your career when things are starting to wind down and you want to keep on the field, or you see that. What I really try to do is with the youth guys, with guys in that sort of 18 to 23 kind of bracket, just make sure they're getting their big rock sorted so they can have a nice long career, but also when they finish playing their sport, that they have enough education around their general health and keeping healthy. So I think if we apply those broad themes to the athletes that we work with and the teams that we work with, we're having pretty reasonable success at the moment.
So what got you interested in doing strength and conditioning and physio work, and what brought you into the industry?
Yeah, it's a funny story because I actually was playing semi-professional rugby when I was younger. I moved from New Zealand. I'm originally from New Zealand, Auckland, New Zealand, South Auckland. And I got offered to come over to the UK to play rugby, just Division 4, real grassroots type of thing. But a lot of my friends were using that time, just finished school, to do their gap year, go travel, have an overseas experience. And I thought, well, I've played sports my whole life, so how can I try and, do the travel thing? But I don't want to just work. I don't just want to, go there and work and then come back. So I got an agent, and the agent got me a gig pretty fast. And back then there was no real big videos and mixtapes and YouTube, all that sort of thing. This was in 2009, 10. So I got really lucky that I had some pretty good references. I played a decent level of rugby in my high school career. So I ended up moving to the UK. I was really bad with S&C and fitness. And thankfully, I had some talent. We played all the time at lunchtime in New Zealand. So I had enough reps under my belt, so to speak. And then I got there and I started playing against men that were much stronger than me and had played 100 to 200 games more. So I found out pretty quickly that it was going to be essential to get stronger. Otherwise, I could forget about it. And initially, you have no sort of experience in that, and you just think, okay, I'm just going to go pump some iron. Hopefully, I get a bit stronger. And then I was finding that I was getting slow and sore, and so I just decided, okay, how can I sort this out? And I picked up a few injuries and ended up spending some time with our physio there. And he sort of developed that sort of passion for the physio side of things. And I really looked into going into study. After a while, I finished playing in England and in Ireland, and I moved back to New Zealand. Couldn't find my way. Same thing again, got an agent, and I moved to the Netherlands just for a year, just for a fun year. And then I thought, okay, after this, I'm going to be 24, 25. I'll go home. I'll sort my life out. But of course, you meet a beautiful Dutch woman, and you end up sticking around, and decided that if I was going to stay here, then I really needed to pursue something in my passion, which was sports. And I related it back to that time spent on the physio table myself. But I really enjoyed the process of problem solving. What's the issue? How are we going to get this person back to where they want to be? It doesn't matter what their goal is, if they want to go to the Olympics or if they just want to work without pain. That sort of problem solving really spoke to me. So went to university here in Amsterdam. After 3 years, I was finished my degree, and I went into a sort of practice. But the practice was based in a big gym, train more in Amsterdam. And there I was sort of doing rehab for people, but I found that I was getting quite a good connection with these people. I was getting requests more and more often, not only to do the physio, but once they're over their injury, they ask me, can you continue with some personal training, or how do we make that work? And then eventually it turned into athletes, specifically football and rugby. And then I got really, really busy. I was working long hours, long days. I had a lot of interns working for me as well. And of course, financially, that was great. But I couldn't quite find that lifestyle balance. And I found myself starting to get a little bit irritated day to day and not really enjoying it, even though my whole life is sport. My whole life is training. I love every minute of it. And once you start not enjoying it, I think you got to take a little time to reflect and step back. And that's what I did. And I decided that I wanted to look for more organizational stuff and where I can put my intellectual property to, instead of just hours and hours and hours and clients and clients and clients. Now I'm trying to sort of put in protocol and education for sports organizations. So that's sort of the journey from 19-year-old wanting to travel the world. Now I'm 32 years old. Most of the day, I think people will probably find my accent a little bit funny because I speak most of the time Dutch. So my English accent, my family is always laughing at me that my accent has changed. But I think that's going to come across when this comes out. There's a few clips of me going. But yeah, up till now, that's sort of how my journey's gone. And of course, develop my philosophy, develop my training techniques, more courses. We've done personal development weeks in professional team environments. I've been all over the world doing physio and S&C. So I'm really, really grateful that I found the industry, because I never wanted to be a doctor. I never wanted to be a lawyer. I never wanted to work behind a desk. And I think my job here now is to let people know that, you can say they're jocks or whatever. Let people know that there's an industry and a business here in sports, and it's a big one. And you can be successful on it. So I think that's kind of where I'm at the moment, just trying to broaden my audience and make sure that people know from my background that you can get into sports and there is a place for you. You can make money doing it. So that's where I'm at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's a tough transition though. Like, could you speak more on what it was like going from a 19-year-old going all the way from New Zealand to the UK to play semi-pro? Obviously, not making a lot of money, but making enough to make ends meet. And then the transition from going back home a little bit, and coming back to the Netherlands, and then being done with sports and trying to figure out what is the next step, and then getting into this side of things. What were the challenges that you faced, and like some of the things that you were just like, man, is this really for me? What was that?
I mean, I think I found out pretty early that, and I think it's actually a blessing that I kind of realized early on that I wasn't going to be a professional athlete at that high level. One, simply because I just wasn't good enough. And I think I found that out pretty early when I started to climb the levels and got to a certain level. I think I was playing in Ireland, maybe Division 2 or 3 or something like that. And these guys were just, every single week, they were just killing me, and trained hard. I did everything I could. I was eating well, sleeping well, and every week I just come out and I just get murdered. And it wasn't physically intimidating guys. They weren't too big. I mean, myself, I'm 6 foot, 100 kilo. So it's not like I'm a small person. These small Irish farm boys would just turn up and just chop the legs out from under me every time I tried to run the ball. And they just had so much heart and so much determination. And this was in sort of farm football, we used to call it, where these guys would just play for fun and then they'd go have some beers after the game. Sometimes before the game. Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes they'd have something in their drink bottle. I don't know what it was, but no, I realized that pretty early, but I really loved being in that. So I was constantly searching for a way to stay in. So how it developed is actually funny you ask, because I did every role within sports. I was a coach for the youth. I transitioned and I became the coach for our premier team here. I was one of the youngest head coaches in our league here, so in the top division here in the Netherlands. I think I was 25 years old when I became the head coach. And that was also very difficult. You know, I wasn't matured as a man yet. So telling people that were last season, my teammates, why they weren't selected, that was a difficult transition. So I'm quite a sensitive type of guy. So I really didn't like that. I really couldn't, you know, make those hard decisions. And that's a coach's job to do. I took it too much to heart when guys were disappointed that they weren't selected. And then I moved into the physio space and found that a lot better because it's a lot more objective. Um, and the same with the S&C side. I mean, one of my favorite sayings, numbers don't lie. You can be way more, cutthroat, I guess you could say. You could be way more direct because the evidence is staring you right in the face. When it comes to coaching, there's a lot of personal preference in terms of systems, in terms of playing style, in terms of time, tenure, how long guys have been there. So making that transition, I sort of just navigated all the roles I could within sort of the paid spectrum. And then I ended up coming over to S&C, and that was sort of instigated by a friend of mine. He came over to do the S&C job for us at our local club here in the Netherlands. And he sort of unlocked a whole new world for me. And I learned that we could sort of extend the rehab continuum by adding performance onto the end of it. So that's what it's kind of grown to now. Like I understand that I can take somebody that's had an injury, whether it's big or small, and get them all the way back onto the field. And not only that, then continue to improve their performance afterwards. So, I mean, it's a financial thing as well. Don't get me wrong. I extend my client base. I extend my market by doing that. But also it's just more enjoyable. It brings more variety. It brings more chances to coach at different types of moments in the rehab or in the performance process. I think where I'm at, working in semi-pro sport, and sometimes I work with pros as well, but semi-pro sport, I don't think you have to be the highest level of expert at each field. I think you can cover a lot in those S&C and physio areas, just having a general broad base. But as you go on, I've been doing this now for 4 or 5 years, not very long, but before that I was an athlete, so I've been in the sports space for a long time. You just develop and you get sharper and you want more. And I think if you expect that from your athletes to get better every day, then it's kind of difficult not to be doing it yourself.
Right.
Because once you get in the room with somebody that's been a professional athlete for 15 years and they've seen all the coaches and you don't come prepared, they smell bullshit pretty quickly.
Real quick.
Real quick. So yeah, just learning that and getting in touch with getting in touch with what I really like to do on a day-to-day basis. That was the sort of growth process from a 19-year-old traveling the world, a bit of a stumbling in the beginning, thinking he was going to play professional rugby and finding out pretty quickly that wasn't going to be the case. But, just trying to stay in that environment because I loved it so much. That's kind of how it developed into what it is now. And now it's a lot less one-on-one training, a lot less clients, but way more upskilling for staff and, making sure that teams have the right plan, macro, micro, everything. And just educating people day to day because then they can look after themselves. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of
Mm,
counterintuitive, really, in
yeah,
terms of trying to make money, but I think it's the morally the correct way.
yeah,
That if you can give people skills and that they can carry on post career, or even just the general population, if they can, have skills to keep themselves fit and healthy, I think that's a noble sort of cause. So that helps me sleep at night, knowing that I'm helping people stay fit or perform. It's kind of the transition, really.
yeah. I mean, making it to professional level. I mean, everyone thinks it's tough, but it's also more simple than what people actually think. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
Yeah.
Trying to get to the professional level at any sport, right, is a 1%er thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not everybody gets to touch and get to that level of calling yourself a professional. Semi pros, a lot of people do it. People go from high school to college, like especially in the States, but then going from college to the professional side is difficult. But
Yeah.
you also talked a little bit earlier about the frustration you had with working with one-on-ones and then getting people, to buy in and then switching over now to the team organization side. Also,
Yeah.
what are like some of the frustrations you're seeing there with people trying to fully buy into like having a physio and strength and conditioning, especially, on the European side? It's a lot
Yeah.
different for us over here in America because I think we know, from a very early age that it's needed and it has to
Yeah.
happen. I mean, even at the college level, you have your athletic trainers, you have a coach for the gym, and then you have your coaches for whatever sports you have. Now, I
Yeah.
know my time in Europe, I've had it to where we didn't really have physios, we didn't have a coach for the gym, and we just had our football coaches that tried to coach all of it.
Yeah.
So, what is it like to kind of get that buy-in, and how did you overcome that frustration and kind of push forward?
Oh man, I was so naive when I began. I spent so much time planning that they were going to be able to do, maximum sprints, building up their sprint distance per week and making all this periodization. And then I got there, and from a team of a squad of 35, 15 people turned up for the first session. Uh, a lot of them had done nothing for the last 2 months. So I kind of had to reassess really. And I think it's just turning up and being like, you got to have your planning down pat, and you got to really be able to understand multiple types of ways. So either you're trying to create a theme or a story, or if you're working with somebody with previous experience, you can use more scientific language. But it's finding that communication level where they're going to understand what you're talking about. And you got to also know your players. I mean, some players, they want to know everything, why they're doing it, how many times they have to do it, exactly how much time they need to rest. And then you get guys that just don't want to know anything. They want to turn up, they want to be told what to do, and then they go home again. So it's it's a communication thing. Everything is communication and organization. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. So the better you come prepared, the better you come with a plan. If you're able to sell that plan, you've got to have a little bit of salesman about you as well. That's part of the industry. And then you've got to be able to objectively show them results. What you're giving to them and what you're doing is making a difference. So what I try to do with every sport, I make a general profile. What do you need athletically to be successful in the sport? And then I make a sort of baseline test, of course. Let's see where you are in terms of power or conditioning, whatever it is and whatever sport it is. And let's see how you compare with somebody that the level that you need to be, and then make a plan from there and just approach it day by day. And, some people, they turn up with the best intentions, and I understand that that's human nature. They're excited. But when it gets to November and the rain and you need to go outside and do a field session, then you know who your go-to guys are. And I think if you harness in a team environment, if you harness and you sort of amplify those guys within your team environment, that's the expectation, then slowly the maybes become yeses. And the no's become maybes. And then you just got to build from there. But yeah, patience, planning, organization, and just knowing your stuff. And you don't need to be a world-renowned S&C coach. If you have a good plan, you're consistent with it, and you understand the load, and you understand what you're trying to achieve, this period, intensity, all those types of things, you can get pretty far, and you can get a lot of buy-in. But yeah, compliance is everything.
Sure. I mean, and then you look on the you look on like the physio side of things, and we talk about some of the athletes that you're working with. What are some of the big injuries that you're seeing that a lot of these
Yeah,
athletes are coming to you with? Like if you take rugby or if you take
yeah.
football, and you take either the men or the women's side, what are some of the huge injuries that are coming to you, and then how are you planning their return to play, and then kind of programming that out for them?
Yeah. We have mostly work in like two separate. So, like in a club, I would be, for example, my title would be head of performance or something like that, and then under head of performance in those two streams, you would have medical and you would have S&C. And so it's a sort of rotational thing where you have a list of the player status, so to speak. So we profile the player. If they have no injuries, okay, what do we need to work on S&C wise? If they have injuries, where are they at? What's their current status? What can they do? What can't they do? And it's sort of like a weekly, daily update that we need to do. And we can try and influence the coaches to make sure that the guys that can't do contact are available to do the startup training. So we ask coaches, come on, okay, we have 6 or 7 guys that can't train tonight contact. So it would be really good if you could do skills block first, and so they could still feel a part of the team environment. And then afterwards, we'll take them away for some extra conditioning, some extra rehab, stuff like that. So once again, it comes back to that rehab. It comes back to that organization and planning. But yeah, the most injuries we're seeing at the moment, actually, it's quite funny in the semi-professional environment, because you have some players that go all in,
Right.
and some players in our league are paid, and some are not. So you have guys that are gymming 3 or 4 times a week. They're doing conditioning top ups. Lifestyle is good. Trying to get their sleep habits in line. They have great nutrition habits. And then you get guys that are talented, but they just want to play for fun, and they don't really want to do all those extras. So sometimes on the field, you have a guy that's an elite athlete and he's going to run and make contact with a guy that's not. So that's where the danger is in terms of the injuries coming to play. So there's a lot of impact injuries. Concussion is, of course, a major one.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know that. And then a lot of shoulder injuries. We don't wear any padding in rugby. So it's only a mouth guard, some boots, and you're off. So yeah, the reason why I do what I do in the club side is to try and get that base level just a little bit higher, because you're going to have some monsters out there
Oh
that are
yeah.
quick, that are big. They're going to run into you and they're not going to slow down. So you got to make sure, from a safety viewpoint, they're prepared to do that. Yeah, but normal stuff, man. Soft tissue injuries, hamstrings a lot, groins, knee injuries, simply because of the contact rotational aspect. People going into contact and they're getting their legs twisted and they're doing all sorts of crazy stuff. So that's all it is, really. We do games on Saturday, and then we do our injury report straight after the game. Try to get that information to the physios. Physios give them a sort of immediate protocol of how to look after themselves. And then Sunday, check in again, 24 hours. What's the status? Do you need to come into the clinic on the Monday? Monday, player status goes to the clubs, the coaches, who's going to be available the coming weekends. Why not? Who's 50-50? When are they going to know? And then they can make their selections. And I think the S&C and physio side of the sort of that sort of section within team sports is becoming a lot more important, because back in the day, for my old school contemporaries, I remember when I was 19 playing in England and Ireland, I was playing with 35-year-old guys, and yeah, after every game, ice everywhere. Tuesday, can't train shoulder. Thursday, can't train tight hammies, and then game again. And then just the whole season of that. Never
Yeah.
go to physio, never in the gym, nothing. Now there's money involved, so these guys need to look after their vehicles, and their vehicles are their bodies. So it needs to be organized really well. But also for the clubs, I mean, people pay membership to go to these clubs, so they can't afford that guys are just missing the whole time. So that's kind of what we're dealing with at the moment. It's a big puzzle, but that's why I enjoy it. It's all problem solving, even on an individual basis, but also on a group basis. And how you communicate that to coaches, sometimes they completely ignore you.
Yeah.
That's a generational thing, I think. There's some quite hard-nosed coaches still floating about. And then you get the sports science coach as well, who wants to know everything. He wants to know distance run. He wants to know intensity, RPE, heart rate. I don't know, man. He wants to know everything. So I think trying to find a happy medium is the best way to do it. And then just applying those principles, making sure you create a good coaching staff.
Yeah. No, I mean, because if we talk about like the physio side of things, I know in Europe, even if I can only speak for the football side of things, like American football side. Sometimes we don't always have a physio out there, so you're having to go to a clinic, and then they might get you one treatment that week.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to show up and play for a game. Has it changed really much, on your side of things, to where guys are coming, 2 to 3 times a week to the clinic to kind of harbor those injuries, to kind of make sure that they're ready for Saturday, and kind of getting them up and running and prepared? I mean, obviously you get the ACL tears or the shoulder dislocations or any soft tissues that are longer term for recovery. Like, you'll take that time, but some of those smaller ones that you can kind of work with in season and during the week to kind of make sure they're still ready to play. How many times a week are you like seeing some of these guys? How hard is it to get these guys to actually show up to the clinic and get that treatment?
Yeah. I mean, it varies. We do a lot of stuff at the club as well. So lucky enough, the clubs that I work with, they have a deal or contract where we're there on training nights. And so that always helps. So at least you got 2 contact moments per week with these guys. But it's also very tricky because once you turn up at the club, it's a free-for-all,
Yeah.
It starts raining, it's a little bit cold, and then all of a sudden you got 8 people for physio. So I try and I put it back on the players, like, okay, you can only see us if you're booked in. If you send us a message about wanting to take a look at something, then we can help you out. And that sort of cuts away 30% of guys that just want to hang around and miss the warm-up or whatever. I mean, that's changing a lot, but a lot of it's dictated by the insurance system, to be honest. A lot of people here in the Netherlands, they have physio in their insurance, in their health insurance. And then a lot of clubs, the major clubs, they kind of pay for a physio practice to look after their players. So in terms of accessibility, is really high. But once again, it's the same as training. You have guys that will turn up every week, 3 times a week to do their thing, and you have guys that you have to message at. You have to, you see them saying that they have an injury, they're going to come see you, and then you see their Instagram story at the bottom. You're kind of just waiting there. But it's getting better, I will admit that. I think with the amount of information, I mean, simply from social media, it's not always the right information, but there is information floating about looking after your body, and also I think the tough guy mentality, that's changed a lot as well. It's not like we used to get teased when we went to the physio or went to see. It was like, come on, man up or whatever. Now it's like, okay, we understand that this is going to help us perform, and that's the most important thing. Game time on Saturday or Sunday or whenever you play, that's what everybody remembers. So you want to do everything you can to be ready to go. Then I think that sort of mentality around the tough guy macho has changed, and the information that you can find on social media, whether it be good or bad. I saw a couple of guys you've interviewed, like some of the stuff he's doing, and his brother. Amazing, real simple, real easy to follow. Also, just bang on. When I went to the pro environments, I spent some time in Japan. I was kind of, really chuffed because they were just doing all the same things that I was doing, except they have way more compliance. So it's really like that. Getting people into the clinic, it's getting easier. But I think it's also reputation and experience. People need to know, and I think people can be shy. Like, I've only just started to develop my social media presence in the last year, but I think people are a little bit conscious about putting themselves out there. Like, oh, this is what I do, and this is where you can find me, and just contact me. And I don't think people really like to put their personality out there that much in this European space anyway. I think it's a little bit different in the States from what I see coming past me, but they don't advertise themselves. If you don't, closed mouths don't get fed.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's what it is. I'm proud to do what I do, and I like helping people and I enjoy doing what I do. So why would I not put it out there? And it's kind of working now for me, and it's growing every month, every year, and I'm really enjoying it. So getting people into the clinic, it's getting better. But yeah, now it's the summer. I work in winter sports, so it's a little bit of a slow summer. But you got a lot of guys doing the off season thing,
Yeah.
checking in. But yeah, it's getting better. I think the dynamic is changing. Also in the workplace, I get a lot more general pop people in because they realize, their workplace supports them in doing that. Before it was always you have to go really early in the morning or really late in the evening because I'm working in the day. I see a lot of people during the workday now. That sort of, I think Corona changed that a lot as well. The work employers are looking after employees more. So I get to be busy in the middle of the day now. When I first started, it was 6 a.m. till 9, and then again 5 till 9. So I'm glad that I have some patients and clients in the middle of the day now.
No, that's good. I mean, I know you talked a little bit about the social media side of things and building up a presence and
Yep.
coaches that you're looking at. Who are some of the coaches that you are learning from and kind of looking up to and kind of using some of their methodologies and some of their practices to kind of
Yeah.
help yourself grow too?
Well, I'd spent some time in the beginning of this year in Japan, for a rugby team, Tobacco Steelers, and I have a fantastic facility there. They have a number of high-level S&C minds, I call them. Phil Healy, I got to work with them in a very limited capacity, but mostly just observing what they did and how they organized it. That gave me a lot of confidence in what I was doing already. Another guy, Brad Anderson, got to spend the week with him, just chatting and just picking his brain, and asking really random questions like why and why are you doing this and why not this and I saw this, just trying to get their years of experience into something digestible that I could take back and apply in my own setting. And Brad Anderson now he's working with the Black Ferns in New Zealand Women's Rugby, and Phil he's worked with multiple international teams, and so that's like at the top end. But even just my own colleagues in my own gym, what works for you, man? We've been doing this for 10 years. So how do I get these guys in the door, and how do I keep them here and all those types of things. And then, yeah, obviously guys like Harry Wright, really in the same space as me. Just love his content and I just love how he communicates stuff. It's really digestible, like I said, but also it doesn't take a huge caption afterwards to understand what he's talking about. And it's constant, every day I wake up and I find, okay, this is another good post. Like what's going on here? And the theming and the philosophy is bang on. Jack Tyler, JT Performance, just people that preach big rocks and, why are you skipping these things in order to do some weird rotational jumping, loaded, whatever, just how about looking at your macros and making sure they're all sorted and sleeping well. And I think that's what's come over. I think a lot of people get scared off from the sports science side of things where they want to know about the exact breakdown of periodization and the exact breakdown of all these different parameters that they need to input. But I think it's much more simpler than that. And when I went into the pro environment, I found out that it indeed was very simple. It's just good choices and good planning. So yeah, that's kind of the people I've looked up to. A good friend of mine, Peter Gibbs, also another New Zealander. He was over here. He's been working in netball, working in rugby, but definitely he's a guy that sort of inspired me in the beginning. He sort of gave me a very direct profile of myself as an athlete. I was still playing, where I thought I was kind of, I was playing pretty well, and I thought I was doing everything I needed to do. But a couple of sessions with him, and I found out very quickly that I wasn't. The way he explained how the roadmap of how to get where I needed to be, and it was achievable. I think some people think, yeah, I need to be tomorrow. I need to be Pat Mahomes tomorrow. I need to be Usain Bolt. It doesn't work like that. The former All Blacks captain Sam Cane, he did a podcast I watched the other day. It's just about banking sessions. Just keep banking sessions, and eventually you're going to get somewhere. And of course, you need guidance. Of course, you need a good program. but turning up is 90% of the battle. So that's kind of the things I've taken away from people that I look up to in the industry, and hopefully people will one day say, that Ray guy, he has some good advice and follow some of his programming results. I don't need it to be broadcast anywhere or anything like that, but that would be enough for me. So that's the kind of philosophy aspect and the kind of idols, I guess you would say, or role models in the industry. And then also you see a lot of athletes doing it themselves now. They're putting out their own content on how they train. So it's nice to see that they are using their platform to educate people and get them stuck into working hard. And that's really inspires me as well.
Yeah. I know you talked earlier about, yourself wanting to educate others and kind of saying that, yeah, it might not work for the business side of things and monetizing things. But if you look back at, 16, 17-year-old Coach Ray, now at 32, what would be your best piece of advice that you give to him?
You're not as good as you think you are. There are freaks out there. There are physical freaks out there. The better that you understand your weaknesses, the faster you can work. That's not just in an athletic sense. That's just being self-reflective. I think it's good to have that sort of wanderlust when you're a young person. Optimism that you can achieve anything.
Yeah.
But I think it needs to be supported by great self-reflection and critical analysis. I think if I could tell that to my 16, 17-year-old self, like, listen, you're a good guy and, you have talent, but you need to look inwards, not look for excuses from coaches that you think don't like you, or the reason they don't like you is because you're not fit. So when it comes to a critical part of the game, they can't rely on you. I think as a young man, you're full of all sorts of hormones. There's a lot of things happening socially in your life, and it's really easy to think, oh, this guy just doesn't like me, so I'm just going to ignore him, instead of self-reflecting. And I mean, I want to say that to my 16, 17-year-old self, but I know who that person is. So I'm not sure exactly how they're going to take that. I think he's just going to be a get off my lawn type of experience. So I would say that definitely, and then just concentrate on the big rocks, just train hard, and be coachable, and then enjoy it, because it goes very quickly.
For sure. I know how that is, looking back at 16, 17-year-old self, my own self. But then also, coaches getting started in this industry, what would you tell them? Like, what would be your first piece of advice you gave to them if they, a young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed guy comes up to you and says, Coach, I want to be the best in this industry. What would you tell them?
I think it's down to passion first. Do you really actually want to do this? Or do you like it because you like some guy that does it? You know what I mean? When I sit down on the couch at night, when I finish my work, all I think about is, okay, yeah, we got to do this for training, and we got to make this right. And, this guy needs this, and this guy needs this. And I mean, I have the ability to switch it off, which I've learned over the years as well. It isn't always good for your life, particularly your domestic relations, when you can't turn it off. But you got to love it. You got to love it. And I think now we're in a growth moment. I think sports and health and fitness is just exploding everywhere. And the information that people have, and I mean, I think I'm in the right place at the right time, definitely, where the Netherlands, they have a very large middle class, a very highly educated population. So they understand health and fitness, and they want efficiency. They want it. They don't want to read something on the internet and go try it. They want to pay somebody to guide them and educate them for 6 weeks, half a year, so they can do it themselves. And I think anybody getting into the industry, they need to realize that in the beginning. 1, do you love it? 2, what's your target population? What do you want to do? Do you want to help people lose weight? Do you want to help people put on muscle mass? Do you want to help athletes get faster? I mean, I think the term personal trainer, strength coach, performance coach, I think that's it's slowly getting more and more specific. In the beginning, I think because of the market and because of how tough it is to get people to pay for your service, of course they're going to get people that want to lose weight. That's the biggest market that there is currently, and people that want to perform and get better in that performance space. I mean, that's a little bit harder to target, but there's definitely room for you there. So I think once you have the passion for it and you decide what lane you want to be in, if that's team sports, if that's general population, if that's I don't know, mothers, whatever, you got to find that really early and be prepared, man. Turn up on time, be prepared. Never ever be late as a PT. That's pretty much rule number one. Especially if you use tardiness as a sort of punishment. Time is valuable. If people are spending money for you to do a service for them, you got to be on time. I think it's just one of the keystones of being in the training industry. So yeah, be on time, be organized, have passion, and decide what lane you want to get into, and then don't be afraid to ask questions, man. I think people stand in silence a lot of the times. They do this, and when you ask them a few days later, yeah, you remember when I showed you that thing? I forgot. So,
Coach, I didn't even know what you was talking about when you said it.
Yeah. It's just mentality. Be vulnerable. That's it, and your progress will be a lot quicker. Let's just say that.
For sure. Now, Coach, before we get out of here, we got our last segment, right? We got our 60-second round. It's one-word answers, right? 10 questions, and it can be all across the board. Are you ready for it?
Perfect. Let's go.
Here we go. 6 seconds on the clock. Favorite sport?
Rugby.
Favorite post-workout snack?
Ooh, peanut butter banana protein shake.
Dream vacation spot?
South America. 2 words, but
Best concert you've ever been to?
Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Favorite movie genre?
Action.
Pets or no pets?
Oh, definitely pets.
Early bird or night owl?
Early.
Best gym you've ever been to?
Ooh, Equinox LA.
Top athlete you've ever trained?
Ali Savia.
Would you rather be in a ring or an octagon with a gorilla, tiger, or a bear?
Ooh, tiger, I think.
And that is it, Coach. Hey, we appreciate you being here with us today. And thank you so much for dropping a bunch of knowledge for a lot of these listeners out here that are trying to navigate the path of how to become a strength and conditioning coach. And you do it on the physio side of things and how to do business and work your social media and whatnot. So thank you again for being here with us today.
No worries, Coop, man. Keep doing what you're doing. Really love the platform. Thank you for having me on.
And we're out.